Hello and welcome to another episode of Think About It with Osi by Fizwe. Today I have a very good friend as a guest on the Think About It podcast, Niina Halonen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you please introduce yourself? I think you can do it better.
All right.
Please.
Thank you. Yes, I am Niina Halonen-Malliarakis.
Malliarakis. I forgot that part.
A long, difficult name for Finland, obviously, and the other half is Greek, as you noticed. Yeah. Probably. What should I say? First of all, I think I'm a lifelong learner. That's what describes me the best. Anything I do, I think and I hope I'm on a path of learning always, as long as I live. As my job at the moment, I work as a principal here in Helsinki City, and I have a long path in Helsinki City, being first special education teacher and principal for years. So that's what I do daily, from 8 to 4, let's say, and most of the time. Yes. And besides that, I think I have tried, and I try daily in my life. As I said, I study a lot of things, so keep my mind constantly in move. The recent studies I finished was of a therapist. And I think the task why I want to talk about education and learning all the time is because I think only by learning new things and learning from other people, you can actually succeed and go forward and change the world, hopefully. This is a brief introduction.
I think I would add to that you are also a change maker. And I would explain why I call you a change maker, because let's give the audience like a preview of how we met. I think it's best you say it's your floor, please.
Yes, we met in those very uncommon circumstances, you might say, at the school. While I always describe it as one of those really dark nights when I thought everything will go wrong, which means that we had to meet under the circumstances that some people at the school, both probably young, old, anyone, had been behaving in a way that ended up in a situation where we had to deal with N-word situation. And it had to be dealt with adults as well. And we met there, probably all thinking that, oh my God, why are we? Especially I did, because I felt that, I have to deal with, it's my job to deal with this, but I felt that I'd rather be not there because I didn't want those situations to happen in the first place. So we met, we dealt with the situation pretty well. We were few of the people were present at that moment, but after finishing certain the things you had to do around that issue to discuss really serious matters, to understand even more serious matters, we were left, the two of us, just looking at each other like, what are we gonna do now? Probably wondering what's next. And that's where we started to get to know each other.
Yes, it's I really respected you after that meeting, because that was not the first time I'm going to such meetings. And I think based on my work as a social advocate, anything that has to deal with racial discrimination, problem with diversity, problem with inclusion, I'm always ready to jump at it. And this was so close home because I think my daughter was one of those who were involved in trying to find a solution. And I remember when she came home and she told me, Daddy, you have to come to my school. Something happened there. I was like, what happened? They used the N-word. And I'm, okay. And do the teachers know about this? Yes, actually, the teachers are involved. I'm like, okay, now we go. And usually when you go to such meetings, the response you get at times is not so nice. That it's not fruitful. But I can tell you that one of the things that I respect is the ability for you to look at the situation and knew that actions needed to be taken. And you didn't hesitate in taking that action or those actions. And that's something that I really admire about people, because in previous situations, it went actually, south rather than better. But this is something we're going to deal in this conversation, because I want to know what brought you to that kind of mindset to become someone that sees when actions need to be taken. And let's now start with your journey into education. Can you tell us, how did you get into this journey of education and becoming up to the point of a principal of a school?
Good question, because I remember when I was maybe 18 years old and somebody told me that you look like a teacher. I thought it was like the worst insult in the world. So being only like 6 years beyond and saying that I am actually a teacher today is an interesting story. And I guess my love for languages brought me first to the universities to even study something, and realizing at the university and in the world, I was living abroad myself. I sort of started understanding, first living in Great Britain and then in Greece, the world isn't the place that I thought it was. I had my own hardships, growing up, but I realized that the world is something beyond my imagination. And recognizing small steps in my own life that I probably wouldn't feel good about life if I wouldn't try to make something different. And for me, that moment, the place was to be an educator. I was so close there already, just behind the door. So I started my journey there, deciding that having, let's say, 15 kids in the class, young people in the class, it's my place to change that place. And if I could do something more and further, it's my place to be there. And going through this journey, let's say, I have taken my steps in politics, in different kind of important boards, participating, giving myself to places where it's very institutional, realizing that, you can make a difference there. It's a slow process, and you make it frustrated, and you make it into all kind of situations. But also realizing through that there's a place there we should take in our time, when there's a moment for that. But even more so, it's important to try to be the person who changes the world where you are working. You won't have to be an educator. I happen to be, but you could be anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. People always ask me, how can you find meaningfulness into your life? Well, just start making it wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're working in a supermarket, anywhere. There's always a place to make a stand and say, hey guys, we are not doing this properly. We are not looking into individuals' rights. We are not seeing world without different colors or whatever. There's always a place for it. In my place, it was in education. And I can tell the truth is when I have applied for the position as a principal, I did consider very much if I am the right person. And I felt that I'm the right person for the place where I am. I don't know if I would be the right principal for every place.
I think you are, because I've seen your relationship with students, and I see how much they love you. It shows in their interaction with you. I've seen them, Niina. And that's something that, if you think about other teachers, in most school, when I was growing up, you feared teachers with your life. The name of a teacher sends chills up your bones. Huh?
Yeah.
So seeing that the students are always clinging to you, always coming to you with their problems, is something that shows you've done excellent in your work. And of course, there are going to be challenges, and those challenges, from what I've seen also, you've been able to navigate it very well. And that's something that I think our listeners would learn one or two things from your way and style of doing things. You talked about, I remember one of your quotes, loving people is a skill that we need to learn. That's strong, because when you think of hate, that's easy to call. That's, hating is, quite popular now. Racial discrimination, all kinds of problems around that. We have it well around us. But you have found something that could be a skill.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? How did that come about?
Well, I guess it came about partially about my job and partially about my individual, my own life, because I have 3 sons, and the second born of them, Daniel, is severely autistic and disabled. And through his life, because he's already 24 today, I've seen a lot of hate, the kind of misplaced hate that I'm sure is part of racism as well. You just hate somebody because
different. Yeah.
Because it's different. I can't stand that, or I don't like that, or I cannot understand that. And had triggered in me many feelings. I had been very angry myself. Hopefully not very much part of any kind of hate yet, but very close falling into that. And I had to start thinking about own behavior, but people around me. And I realized that if I can teach myself, I was testing it on me. If I can teach myself to start feeling and reacting more with love than with hate or with anger, which was really close to my existence, protecting my son from other bad people. I realized that it takes a lot. It's much more harder to learn to love in general than you can easily love your own children or your spouse or people close to you, and not even that always. So it takes something out of you. You need to start practicing it. And I think I'm a good example of this practice, because I've been doing it for years now, so I can say the practice actually brings results. What it means in practice is that you give a second chance and you listen. You listen a lot. As I told you earlier, I had an experience. I had to listen a lot of hate last week from somebody. And all the time while taking it in, I was able to process it with the love that I have inside me. And I hope I can help him slowly by giving it back to him through the love I feel for education, for any young person at the school. So I think love, because we all believe that hate can be taught easily. It's just while you're walking something, you start actually screaming and shouting at somebody. Where did you actually learn so fast to hate somebody? It's almost amazing, right? I don't think love that happens that easily, because it's all about what we have experienced. You might be a person who has no good experiences of people or love and kindness. So you have to start looking for them. You have to start at least giving them somehow, somewhere. First of all, you should start having them. And I can't give good feelings to everybody. You can't do it either. So we have to try to educate everybody in this world. That's quite a target. But giving the idea that it's nothing away from you to be kind to a person. It's for a second. I mean, these tests, that I grab and I hug totally unknown person. I have not been killed yet or even talked unkindly. I go and I do little things like I'd say to somebody, oh, you have such a beautiful dress. Or you look so beautiful today. Or you look so kind. Can I talk to you for a moment? You look lonely. Can I help you? Little things like, of course, I can't do that all the time. I'm a person, I'm tired often too. I don't do it all the time. But the times that I do, I realize that I often get them back to myself all of a sudden. Let's say 5 weeks ago, I told somebody his nice dress. All of a sudden, after 5 weeks, somebody tells me I have a beautiful dress. How amazing is that?
Yeah.
There's a butterfly effect or something in this world. If you want to give good, it will slowly move into forward somewhere. And what I mean by practicing love is especially for us adults. My first lesson in education was to forgive other people and ask for forgiveness from others, to say that I'm sorry, I made a mistake. When you start being vulnerable as an adult and you give real thoughts and feelings to others around you, it will pay back. It will start moving something forward in people, and you start actually thinking, there's kindness in world, and when you start feeling there's kindness in world, you get to the love part. Because we think love is something that you're very lucky to receive somewhere, and I don't want to see it that way. Because I actually feel that sometimes when I grab a kid at school and I hug him and say good weekend, I don't know him very well or her very well, but I can feel the love. It's there.
I really like the way you kind of highlighted the steps, that it's okay to be angry, but we can channel that anger to become kind of kindness. And from kindness, it could grow to love. And it takes a lot of practice, because it's hard to even be kind to those you don't know, or actually to those who do not show gratitude or appreciate it. It's really hard. And this is something that you've done very well. And I've seen it in action. And that's why I say it's a skill. And I've taken it upon myself also after I saw your actions, that, hey, start to think how to be kind, more kind to people. And talking about this issue of anger, oftentimes when you deal with difficult situations like that of your son, or people are mean just out of nowhere, it's hard not to be angry, and it's hard not to react emotionally. But this is something from what you're saying that we should focus on forgiving, trying to see how to make it better or giving a second chance. And this is a tool that I think I would try as much as possible to apply. And I think the audience also and the listeners will feel the same also. And this brings us to the part of your recent TED talk. It was so that, you were part of the speakers, because after we had the meeting, I said, no, a change maker like this needs to be seen by everybody as much as is possible. Tell us, what was that experience like?
It was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, it was, my topic was, as we talked today about, was about this, love being taught, being a possibility being taught. And I thought it's a bit strange topic. I realized that because many people have more targeted, topics where you can actually give a product or something out through it. And I know this is very abstract to talk about love, but I felt excellent because I realized that I don't know if I have another chance in my life to do it this way, to give it as the only topic of I can always try to put in the topic of love, but when will I have a chance to just talk about love? I think it was absolutely amazing. As an experience, what do you get out of this kind of experience? First of all, you get to meet new people for a long period of time because we met online so many times. We almost started feeling like we know each other from a long period in life. You realize how different we are, how world is at the same time massive and tiny, and as our thoughts. And when you get to the place and the day and when it happens, you get this feeling that, again, by this everybody's individual moment, you come together to give a story that is about life and world and making the world a better place. And I wouldn't have missed it for anything. It was wonderful. I realized that there isn't a topic we can talk about. It's just how much you believe in it, how you want to give it to people.
Yes, and that's the beauty of TED and TEDx talks, that everything is a subject, and it depends on how you developed it. And I really appreciate the angle, because we had a very diverse co-creating of stories.
Yes.
So somehow there needs to be that thread that runs through it, and we are able to achieve it. I want to believe so.
I do too.
It was a beautiful experience, and it's not the end of that experience. I'm sure we're going to be having more of that. So it's something that I really appreciate so much. But now let's go a bit further into the reality that we are living in at this time. We touched on it in the beginning, where you think about how we met. Finland is undergoing a lot of changes, and you are someone that has that vision of how to make it better. I'm sure it's not popular, but if that consistency that you give and your approach would definitely work and bring real solutions, because we could see it in your relations with the students. They run to you when they have problems. So there's trust. And this is something that is important. The first step in building any kind of relationship is the trust. And that's something you've kind of achieved. But let's think about it. What are some of the challenges? Because some of your decisions as a principal, as a school, as an educator, as a change maker, wouldn't be popular to the general public. How have you managed to navigate these challenges, or at times communicate your vision to people that work with you, especially when probably it's not seen, because they are not seeing what you're seeing? How do you kind of navigate those barriers?
It isn't easy, I can tell you that, because there's so many things and rules and regulations you should follow every day as just being part of my job. Then there are also these great ideas and idealism we all live every day. And then there's the reality. and when you face the reality, what I'm worried about right now is that when people feel less equal, they feel they don't have the same chances, and they get agitated by the fact that somebody's doing something and the other person isn't. You create very strange places, moments of anger and not believing in the future. And if we were in an ideal world, we would start from the fact that every adult, especially adults, we would have to do things through a certain code, an absolute code, where everybody's treated equally. And you're allowed to make mistake, of course, but we don't have that code anywhere at the moment. Maybe there's a country I don't know about, but there isn't. And we make many things on the surface and hardly ever get to the point of reality. What I think is very important is listening, because I know only certain things. I'm already that old that, for instance, there are many things that I can't see anymore as young people do at the moment. Even though I want to and I'm willing to, I still don't. So I think we always need to listen first. Listen, and I listen a lot. And when we have listened, in my opinion, we give the person back what we have heard, and give on top of that what actually happens, for instance, in rules and regulations, and what we should do together now when we know that you feel this, I know that, and there's something here we should discuss how to make this work. Without listening, you can't go anywhere. So the first step is to listen, and we don't do this enough. For instance, at schools, we are such in a hurry all the time, and we have so certain opinions about life, school, future, everything. Most of them okay. You can give them and pass them on, but there are nowadays spaces, gray area. We don't have any solutions yet. We don't even know where Finland is going at the moment. And we have thousands of people here who could make such a difference and not allowed to do so. So this is a gap. There's this gap. What I do at school every day is I'm trying to remind people and trying to find them the seed inside them which tells them this is what we should do. I can't find it with everybody. People have different opinions about world and life and everything altogether. Most of the people understand what I'm talking about and are probably doing it even better than I am. But the change is happening very slowly at the moment. And we have political and other restrictions that are not helping us at all. So my fear is that if you create a world where just by being born or just moving to the world, to the land, Finland in this case, you have been stripped of some of your rights, it cannot create anything good. So everything starts from listening and being equal. And in a small society as a school, we have some chances of making some changes to the system and giving people voice, feelings of being equal. But it has to be beyond schools. It has to be beyond working place. It has to be the entire nation. And we are far from it at the moment. A lot to work. And what I'm saying maybe today is very important to me and people of any kind, people, for instance, like myself, but other kind as well. Please, let's not give up, because this is something I consider daily too. If I can't make anything change, why bother? This is exactly why, because we can make a difference.
I cannot put it better, I really like the way you put it, that even though we've come this far, there's still a lot of work to do. And that lot of work demands everyone, not only in the school system. Super. And I think it highlights a bit what we were discussing before, that I've also decided somehow, as much as it's uncomfortable for me, to actually give my voice and my experience working in this community where people are stripped of their rights. People the value of people are not tapped into. I've used this analogy that often immigrants in general or people who are different are like diamonds.
Yeah.
You know, when unpolished, it looks dirty, it looks ugly, but it's valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But for it to have more value, we have to do the polishing, we have to do the cleaning. And that's where we need to work as a country, as a community, as individuals. What am I doing on my part to contribute to a better society where everyone has a voice, is seen, or feel included, so that we can tap into the value that people bring and use it to build a better society. And I think you've started on a good path, because it is the vision you are communicating, it's becoming little by little clear. And I want to ask, what part does communication play in this? Because I teach communication, and I've noticed at times that when we might have very beautiful ideas. I was in a seminar where somebody from the Prime Minister's office was actually talking about, hey, we are doing this, we're doing that. And I was like, I've never heard this before. So who are you telling these things? How are you passing your message? How are you communicating this so that it could get to the right source? Because the gap exists. And unfortunately, the gap is becoming wider and wider. And this is where actions are really, really necessary. And I really love what you've been doing. And I know that you are set to make a lot of change, in the coming future. I think what we should focus on now is, how do we start building a better means of communication to be able to pass our message, even to those who don't appreciate it, those who don't see the need. Because, for example, I can imagine in your work environment, and I've worked with your teachers in the past, where some of them have a way of doing things, which is not totally wrong. But based on the evolving situation that we find ourselves, how do you balance it? And how are you able to use communication or how do you use communication as a tool to better understand your vision?
I think a very important part of the communication was two things, actually. Always respecting your audience, anyone around you. And coming back to the love, again, is also a second one. I think and being humble is one thing, because communication should be clear, respectful, in that sense that, and hope, trying to make it go through where you're targeting the information, because I know what you're talking about, having great programs that somebody's telling us very somewhere high up, they've done this, they've done that, but none of us have seen any of the actual parts of it. So we don't really know what they're talking about or what's happening. And often what happens is that they are so highly landed ideas that they are not creating any actual action, So I discussed with you a lot about how to bring, for instance, parents to school in a way that they wish to come there honestly. And we've been doing this year, and we're starting already in the springtime. We discussed, the matter was that please ask people to come just to meet you, to discuss things, to have something enjoyable, a cup of coffee, tea, dinner, whatever. And we had kind of evening of tea in May, I remember. We have been doing this earlier. Probably all the schools do that, but it's a tiny switch, on the attitude, like not giving ready answers in your invitation, but rather asking them to come and create the answers. And I think there's a very important part of the communication. This autumn, we've been having a few discussions with parents already, and we had the same effect, that when there is a title on something, what we will discuss, but we are not showing it ready. We are asking them to come in and discuss or get help, nicely, politely asking people to come in calling them on the phone, for instance, because they are not maybe ready to read the message somewhere else. Using different medias to find the people. And we will have another one in a week's time now that we are calling, it's called Positive Parenthood. And again, it's a stat. Please come in for the Positive Parenthood and let's see what comes out of it. So I understand that there are situations we have to rule very strictly, when there is violence or bad behavior, whatever, it needs to be addressed. There needs to be certain things done, but we shouldn't stay there. The problem is we often stay in the problems and we don't go to the solution area. And the solution area is the only place we can actually connect equally. Because when we are in a problem area, one of us is usually leading the conversation, the situation, whatever. So I think very important part. Even when I'm trying to pass on very serious important issue to homes, I rather say it kindly and politely, because I know what it is to be in a bad place with your children or in your life. It doesn't help if somebody's, raising a finger and telling you, do that. Because I would have done it already if it was that easy. So a lot of conversation, a lot of co-creating, a lot of listening and respecting. That's something I'm so worried about at the moment, that people are losing the sense what respect feels like, and it is. And it's one of the main things to survive as a civilization, to respect others. And I would put a lot of tone there, coming from up there, from all the governmental people down where I am, wherever. Respect. Whoever is with you there, start it with respect, keep it with respect, end it with respect. It's very important.
You're telling things that sound like music today. It's really amazing that you have this vision, because it's something that I think we've said this in our previous discussions, that oftentimes when you get called to school as a parent, the only thing you're thinking about, what's the problem now? What is the problem again? But for you to use a different approach, that, hey, just come, let's get to know you, that's trust building. And I think as a parent, that's the kind of message or call I would want to get from my school, the principal or the teachers in my kids' school. Because it's really important to see and listen to other perspectives and not judge. And I would say this from an immigrant background or perspective. Oftentimes when you go into schools, there's this level of distrust for the system. I don't trust the teachers. What are they up to again? What problems are they looking for? But using a different approach like you have used kind of takes that away. Imagine hearing that, hey, your kid is doing good in this area. They are doing that in that area. Anytime I have a problem, you are the first person I'm going to call. You know what I mean? And this is what it's needed. It requires these steps to actually achieve a more equitable society. A society where racial discrimination and other forms of biases kind of take the background. And we've seen that also in your students, that some of them, they've come to trust you so much. And I believe that communication goes to their parents. It goes home.
I know, and they're angry at me too, and I would like to tone out that anger is not so bad thing as we think it is. It feels bad, especially if it's addressed towards you, but it usually gets you to the point a bit faster, some other route, and it makes changes. But we should not have our children and youth or adults either staying in anger for too long time, because I think there's the chance you fall into hate. You kind of like, boom, there you're in the sea of hate, and that's a more difficult place to get out. There are no quick solutions to any of these issues, but I'm really hoping that we don't fall out of hope, because it's the only place to be. If you raise children without hope, if if you look in the future without hope, it's a hopeless place to be. I think what is very important with it, with the young people in general, is to, even if they have bad experience of bullying, racism, or anything that is difficult to solve, and they will come to you. Parents can come to me, always telling me again and again that somebody was racist again, and I feel sad, but I shouldn't get angry. If I get angry every time and I start very much like, oh, this didn't happen, because as we know from our own lives, bad situations are very individually understood and taken. So we shouldn't tell it's not there when we don't know what actually is somewhere, but we should listen and try to figure out why the person feels that it is there, and is there some way that we can prevent it from being there tomorrow? Because I know there are lots of people listening, probably adults, thinking that I don't do anything, but I don't want to do anything, but I don't want to be a racist. I've never done, but still I get these accusations towards me every now and then, and they get angry, or they just get frustrated or sad, and my point is, don't listen. Tell, okay, I understand you felt that way. Please tell me why. And usually when you start listening and you have this conversation, you have already found a solution. But when you get angry and you don't want to hear and you say, I didn't do it, nothing's happening. Nothing is changing. It's hard to say. Often, for instance, if you say that I'm sorry about something I didn't mean, but it obviously happened, it may be hard to say those words, but you actually, by saying them, change the world.
Yes.
That's the obvious thing here. And I honestly believe that if we used more words, such as I care about you, I love you, I'm sorry, all these very simple things, we would be on the right path faster. We still are on the right path.
Simple,
but
not so simple.
yeah. But I get angry too. There have been times when somebody has been really unkind to Daniel. I've been really angry, and I've been looking for the love that I believe I'm carrying, really hard, and still have answered quite strictly to a person who has not stopped being unkind. I said, now you stop. I've said, you stop now. That's enough. I told you 3 times kindly, and now tell you stop. And when it hasn't happened, I've had this great experience that other people have come to my rescue and started saying stop. And so world is ready for it, but they don't know how to react. Not everybody knows what to do when something is wrong. So it needs guidance. It needs a lot of talk. It needs a lot of action from all of us. We get tired. But then again, I go to school and I see the kids and I'm like, yes.
it's not, and I've seen that in action because, working with the kids also. And this is something the listeners might also want to know, because we run workshops with the 9th graders to teach them how to communicate better, how to channel anger, not let emotions speak, because like you said, it's okay to be angry, but how do you not speak with emotions? How do you show, for example, you've been graded wrongly and you've done a lot of work? How do you approach the teacher to say, hey, I put in a lot of work into this and I think you should actually review it. So rather than expressing that emotion, use it rightly. Exactly. And this is something that I think you've done very well. Knowing how to channel your anger, because I know our first interaction, you could have gone, hey, this didn't happen here, this is how we do it here, and that's the end of the subject. Let's continue, because that's your right. That's your authority as a principal. You had the final say what could go or what couldn't go forward. But for you to use a different approach, because I remember you listened, and you listened very well, trying to understand this. And I can imagine how it is also when you have your teachers meeting, how you also listen to this different perspective, yet you are able to communicate your vision and work towards that with them. This is something that I think I admire, and I learned a lot from you in that way. On a final note, because we can go on with this forever, but I know we're going to have follow-up and lots of follow-up on this conversation, because this is something that we actually think of doing more work about, in terms of it's time to use whatever voice we have to actually be the change we want to see.
Yeah.
If we want to see a more equitable society, now it's time to put it into work. Get to understand the other person's perspective, why they do things the way they do that. And it starts from listening from a very clear point where we don't have biases.
Right? Yes.
And it's a good one. Thank you so much. On a final note, what would you like to tell the audience? Our takeaway with this. And I think everything you mentioned, crystal clear. And I'm sure they are going to find one or two things that we could use to improve whatever we've had or what we have now. What final word would you give to anyone listening now?
I think, in the society, the world we live today, we are given so many negative news and tasks to follow daily that we let it get into us and change us slowly into people who have no energy for change. So my advice, I think, for everybody to from regardless where you are, what you do, where you want to be, make where you are the change by being more into listening, more into giving good feelings to other people, more being yourself in a positive way, because I believe each person has a positive personality. Something happens to us, we get tired, life is hard, many things, we know life is what it is, but you can always start changing it. If you don't want to believe in story of love, you can do something else good that makes you feel better. What I say to everybody is that when I wake up in the dark moments of winter at 6 o'clock, when the alarm is beaming, banging, and hitting my head, I'm not very happy that moment. I feel the world is awful place. It's very dark, it's cold, and I should get out there. And it takes me about 5 minutes to remind me where I am, what I can do. There's a cup of coffee if I just make it, and there will be a school full of people, adults and young people, that I want to see. There will be problems, but there will be solutions. And there wouldn't be anything if we didn't have each other. I have met amazing people in my life, including you. I could have not even imagined. And that's why life is so wonderful, because you meet people, you make change just by waking up, doing your thing, coming, listening, changing a tiny millimeter in the world. If we all did that every morning, can you imagine what would happen? If everybody, just only Finland, 5.5 million would do that every day, it would change everything. It's just a little thing. Don't try to make the world better in one day. It cannot happen. But that 1 millimeter, it's there every morning.
1 millimeter per day.
Yes.
I'm sure would form a lot of kilometers over time. And this is the approach that I see you taking, because some of the steps you've given, I'm quite sure, given time, you would see the difference in your school, in your environment, with those around you. And I can tell already that you're having those results already. Thank you so much, Niina, for coming. Thank you for being yourself and telling us all these wonderful tips. Loving is a skill that needs to be learned. Learn 1 millimeter per day. Yes. And definitely the future would be a better place for everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Osita.
And thank you for the listeners for being there again this week. And I hope this has been an interesting episode where you found 1 or 2 tips to create a better society. Use your voice rightly. Do the right things, even when it doesn't please everyone around you, but be the change you want to see. Thank you for tuning in again. And until next week, when we see or meet again, stay strong.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.